Connell, what are the top three mistakes that nice guys in their 30s are making right now and trying to navigate today's dating marketplace?
I think the first mistake that nice guys make in their 30s is thinking that being a nice guy is a detriment when niceness, kindness is actually exactly what women want. Women want a nice, kind guy as long as that kind guy has confidence. Second big mistake is on his dating profile, he probably just grabbed a couple of shots from his phone of him doing a dark selfie where he's got seven chins. So bad photos is another big mistake that men make. And I think the third biggest mistake that men don't even realize they're making is they just have logical, boring conversations with women about facts and information instead of flirting with some fun, good, playful emotions.
I love all that, man. We could pick each one of those apart here. And I think you dove right into like an identity issue, right? It's a big driver of the work that we do. It's something I've talked a lot about. I think I've shared with you prior to hitting record here. I've multiple times I've struggled with identity in my own life. You mentioned that women are looking for the niceness, but I think that there's that old saying, right? Nice guys finish last. So where did that go wrong? And when you say women is looking for niceness or kindness, kind of, can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Women want a kind man. Women,
What's the difference between kind and nice?
exactly. Kind is, I'm a kind hearted person. I'm empathetic. I care about others. Mom and dad raised me to be a good young man. Nice in the dating mistake category would be I'm going to go on a date with this woman and I'm going to be well behaved and filter myself through the lens of what do I need to say to get her to like me? Let me play it safe. Let me lean in and listen to every word she says when maybe I don't care about her story about shoe shopping and I want to talk about something fun. So niceness can come across as supplicating. So nice is good. Supplicating, putting a woman on a pedestal above you, that is what can get a quote nice guy in trouble.
And Glover outlines this, and obviously, no more Mr. Nice Guy is, these covert contracts, right? If I act this way, if I behave this way, if I show interest in the story or the shopping that I'm not really interested in, then at the end, I'm going to get the kiss, the second date, or potential the relationship. So there's a distinction where I think you're saying kindness is authenticity, and niceness oftentimes is really a character that we're playing, inauthentic. That be accurate?
Authenticity is to dating what the force is to Luke Skywalker. It's inside of every man. He just has to channel it. The force is strong in you, young Padawan. And by authenticity, I mean showing your true personality, your sense of humor, literally speaking your truest, most real thoughts, as long as they're not vulgar, as long as they're not, a major social faux pas. Here's a quick story. I want to share this with you, Frank, because I think this might resonate with a lot of people listening. My client Trevor was on a first date with a very attractive woman named Katie, a beautiful brunette chef. Trevor had been friend zoned 4 straight times by 4 different women. And he said, no more. I'm done with that, with my help, I'm glad to say. And Katie walks into the bar. They sit down. I had been coaching Trevor up. And he's attentive. He's present. He's listening. And Katie, God bless her, tells a long story about shoe shopping that day. Nothing wrong with talking about what you did for your day. But Trevor could sense he was starting to pretend like he cared about that when he didn't. So he interrupted that little thought pattern in his head and he said, hey, let me jump in. I have totally lost interest in that story, Katie, but let me tell you what happened to me today. And so he interrupted her. And he told me that he told me that later that she cocked her head and gave him a look as if to say, did you really just tell me to stop talking? And he didn't shush her to stop talking. He was trying to make the date more fun. And he was being really authentic and honest. Half hour later, within about 15, 20 minutes, Katie is sitting on his lap and they're making out 30 minutes into their date. The whole bar is staring at them. Now, the lesson here is not to shush women and not to say, hey, I don't care about what you say. Don't make that mistake that I think toxic alpha males make. But the point is, be honest, be real, take responsibility for a date going well. And if that story isn't helping the date, jump in there and talk about something more fun. And it was that authenticity, that the willingness to lose her, that made her very attracted to him.
I already love where this conversation is starting and going, and I think it's your work that drew me into having you on here. That it's not about the tactics, the strategies, the PUA, the pickup artistry, which I think has kind of lost some of its strength out there in the world. But it's like you got to know yourself. Like you see dating, I think through a very similar lens that I see life through. Identity transformation, real personal growth, authenticity. It all starts with truth. Some guys would hear that, right? That story that you just shared. You're like, all right, next time I'm on a date, like I got to shush a woman. And it's like, no, you shush her if the shushing is actually need to be shushed. Like if that's who you are in the moment and you've lost interest. So I love that you kind of unpack that and shared such a prime example here. I think the challenge comes in so many guys not knowing themselves though. Would you agree? Like, I mean, obviously if we're going to be authentic in a date, like we need to know what real authenticity is to ourselves. Like, so how I guess yeah, help me kind of formulate a question here. Because I think where I'm kind of going. Like with the men that are seeking you out, how much of your work is helping them discover themselves versus like here's the strategies, the tactics, to be successful in the marketplace.
I would say yes, it's about discovering and knowing who you are. To get one level even more specific, here's the magic trick. It's about getting in touch with your worthiness and attractiveness to women. That core sense of significance, of worthiness, of I am enoughness. It's not just about knowing who you are, although that's part of it. You have to know, hey, I bring a lot to the dating table. I have a job. I'm an intelligent guy. I'm a software engineer. I love my mom and dad. I'm a good dog dad. I make a great French toast with bourbon infused syrup. I bring a lot to the dating table. And understanding that you have that value to bring to a woman's life. And so, yeah, you want to know who you are, but most importantly, the first thing we have to do as a man in 2025 to have dating success and to get an incredible partner is to get to understand, hey, I am more than enough. Maybe I'm not 6'4". Maybe I don't have Frank Rich's six-pack abs. Maybe I don't have X and Y and Z. But man, I bring a lot to the dating table because if you don't believe that, a woman's not going to believe it either.
I love that, man. I one of my talking points I had written down here. I believe for a long time in this statement, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you can teach somebody to succeed in a certain area, there's going to be transferable skill sets, belief systems, knowledge. I believe it, but I also don't believe it. Like, because there needs to be an intentionality behind it. You deal with a lot of highly successful individuals, professionals, executives. I'm sure these are the guys that are seeking out a professional dating coach, guys that have the disposable income to be able to afford it, just like myself, right? Like guys that are succeeding out in the world. We've worked with pro athletes, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, but there's a specific area that they struggle to break through. And it's not that they don't know what to do. They don't see it through the proper, what I would say, story or narrative that they're telling themselves. So how much of this success that we're seeking, this nice guy identity, this authenticity is wrapped up in narratives? Because right, you got to believe that you have value. Well, that's a story narrative that you're telling to yourself. So how much of where these guys are struggling is actually just in the story that they're telling themselves about who they are?
Can I go full self-improvement coach nerd on you for a second? Here are the three S's. These are the three S's you need to achieve something incredible in your life, in any area. I'm talking about dating today, but this goes for anything that your listener wants to achieve that's incredible. Here are the three S's in order of importance. The first S is story. The story you tell yourself about what you offer and your ability to achieve this thing. It's the most important one, that sense of significance and yeah, I'm capable of this. The second S is your state, how you feel, your vibe, feeling good about your outcome and being excited to move forward because that without that state, we don't want to take action. And the third and least important S, it's important, but it's the least important is strategy. That's the how-to, the tactics that you mentioned. And don't get me wrong, I love teaching this technique, how to flirt. I love all the ninja dating, flirting moves in the world. I've learned all of them. I've made up a lot of them myself. But without the core sense of story and my value and worth and a good state and being excited to move forward, the techniques aren't going to take you very far. at least in dating, and I found in many areas of life. So you got to get that first S handled, which is story. Who am I as a man? Do I bring value to women? And if your answer is no there, if you feel like you're not attractive to very many women because of X, Y, or Z reason, I'm too short, I'm too old, I'm too fat, whatever it is, then you got to change that story. Because if that story is not handled, you're telling yourself a horror story, like I did for the first 38 years of my life, which is why I was lonely and sad and dateless till I was 38.
I think for a lot of guys though, and then, maybe here we unpack this, how do we actually succeed in doing that? Is sometimes that story is true, like to a certain degree. Like if you haven't had success in dating and you tell yourself I'm unsuccessful in dating, like there's an element of truth wrapped up in that. Now I definitely agree. Like we have to reframe the story we tell ourselves about our value. But that's going to require some additional layers of unpacking. So if I'm a single guy in my 30s, if I've been rejected every single time I've approached a woman, perhaps I don't have the strategies and techniques. How do I actually rewrite a story or narrative that I can be successful?
Well, most men haven't been rejected because they have taken precious little action at all. And so most men, at least the men who come to me, they say, Connell, women don't like me. I'm not attractive. I always strike out. I say, hey, how many women have you approached in the last year? Oh, none. Why bother? Why bother? And don't get me wrong, if a guy came to me and said he'd approached 100 and 100 women said, ew, get away, then we would look at the technique. Or we would look at some things that are holding him back. But what I think most men, most single men deal with in the world is when I say the story, I'm talking about a story and a belief about your very identity, your very worth to women, not whether or not you succeeded or not. We can look at that with absolute no bullshit honesty. You have struggled with dating. You have not been successful at this. Let's be real. Let's pull those weeds out by acknowledging those weeds exist. But the thing that's very that trips men up that they don't even realize is a trap door is the very self-doubt that I'm not good enough, I'm too whatever, too short, too brown, too black, too whatever. It's that self-doubt that keeps guys from even trying. Or if they do try, they are so afraid and they're so timid, their voice gets all quiet, and then they might get rejected, not because of their technique or their height or looks, but because he didn't feel worthy, he didn't bring any confidence. A lot of women are attracted to very different things, but a universally attractive thing to women is confidence. If you don't have that, you don't have much.
Can women sense that?
like like a guy has BO. Yes.
And they can tell the difference between confidence and cockiness, maybe not the right word there, like a false, like true authentic confidence. Like this dude is just believes in himself versus like he's projection, like the projection.
Right. Women have really good shit detectors. Women are really good. They're very sensitive shit detectors, which is why. And by the way, I went out for years doing all the pickup artist stuff. Well, maybe not years, but for a couple of years. I did all the pickup artist stuff where you put on a mask per se and act all cool, mysterious, act like an alpha male, act like a boss. And look, if it worked, I'd probably still be doing it, or I would have done it back then, but it just didn't work because I couldn't keep it up, and women could sense this bullshit artist in front of them. I remember I had a first date once with a woman named Lauren who I was so enthralled with. It was our second date. And I thought, based on what I knew about her, she wanted to be with an outdoorsy, rugged guy, which is not me. I'm a dorky nerd who likes musical theater. I am not a rugged, outdoorsy guy, but I played that part for her. And on my date, I start just lying to her about all the things that I was doing or working on. Oh, yeah, I'm taking flying lessons. I go hiking in the Appalachian Trail. Total nonsense. And I wasn't lying to deceive her so much as I was lying to make myself seem significant and more attractive to her. And I don't think she knew for sure that I was full of shit, but she could just tell something was off, and she quickly friend zoned me. So you want to remove that mask and really lean into bringing that real, vulnerable, and hopefully with help and time, confident version of you, because that authenticity is going to attract not every woman, but boy, is it going to attract the kind of woman who likes your type.
And that's a key, man, is there's 8 billion people in the world. Like there's a woman out there that's looking for you. Exactly you. Like she's got it written in her journal. Like I'm looking for a woman's looking for a guy with a mustache and a big goofy hat and likes watches and bracelets, right? Like she's out there. Well, she's already in my life, but at one point she was looking for me. Um, so I think a lot of guys, and it's tough in today's world. Social media, comparison, you see all this false bravado, people winning, they get trapped up in this thing. So, how do you encourage guys to stay in their lane? I don't know if that's the right way to kind of phrase it, or have an understanding of even, okay, yeah, stay in their lane. I can't think of a better way to maybe ask the question. I hope you kind of get what I'm asking here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Play to your strengths. It's like sports, right? If you if you're an outside shooter, be that sixth man who comes in off the bench and shoots the long jump, the long shots. Don't try to be Michael Jordan. Be John Paxson. I'm showing my age now. Old school basketball references.
90s Bulls. There'll never be a team like it.
There you go. The Last Dance, right? But yeah, I'm not Michael Jordan. You might not be the Michael Jordan of dating, but you can play to your strengths. What I mean by that is if you're a single dad, then talk about that with some passion, with some emotion, with some commitment to it on the date. Or if you're a nerd like I am, I like musical theater. I like reading books about Abraham Lincoln. I love Star Wars. And I had a first date right after the pandemic ended with a model, a Harvard grad professional model named Catherine. And look, we're not together now. It didn't last long term, but we vibed and had a great date about, we talked about Star Wars, and she was a big fan of Game of Thrones, and she's a total nerd. She just happens to be a professional model. If I had tried to be the guy that I think a model wants, she would have sniffed that out. She just wanted to nerd out about the Ice King and Yoda, and we really hit it off because we saw each other as sort of teetering on the same limb together. So play to your strengths as much as you can, your sense of humor, your sensibilities, your life experience, and be willing to be vulnerable and say to a woman, "Oh, you know what? I'm really nervous, but I'm excited to meet you." If that's true, lean into that truth because that's rare in dating. It's so rare, and women really appreciate it.
I want to move on to the second mistake here. Bad photos. We spent, I think a significant amount of time here unpacking identity. Gave a lot of great insights and value there. I love the 3 S's: true authenticity, staying within your lane, all that great stuff. Just unpacking this here a little bit. We won't spend 15, 20 minutes on photos, but I just want to touch on it because it was the second thing that you said in terms of the biggest mistake. I'm not pushing back, but I'm going to maybe kind of frame it in a way where I maybe challenge a little bit about the first one, right? So authenticity, truth, knowing who we are, but then we're just going to like do a photo shoot, or like how do we create the proper photos if the biggest mistake most guys are making? So yeah, there's a question is, what are the mistakes that they're making? Because you mentioned like the 7 chins and all this stuff. And then what should the photos actually represent? Is it something you go out and professional photo shoot? Like you don't want to be too unauthentic in that realm as well.
Yeah, well, I think of online dating, and we'll talk about the photo aspect of online dating, but a big myth to bust is online dating isn't dating, it's marketing. Until you meet that woman in person, or at the very least have a phone or video date, it's not dating, it's marketing. And your online dating profile is just a piece of digital marketing. And the word marketing can give some people a little bit of an ick because, like, ew, marketing, gross. But there are different kinds of marketing. There are certain brands, jumping outside of dating for a second, certain brands that just sort of lean into giving a different message. Midas used to say, we're number two, or I'm sorry, Avis used to say, we're number two, so we try harder in terms of rental cars. Or Southwest Airlines used to have some really, really genuine counter-programming marketing that felt very real. Similarly, with our online dating profile, we want to cut through the noise in that market that women are looking at on their phones and treat your profile like a piece of marketing. And what are the 2 things that a piece of marketing has to do to break through that noise? Is it has to show some kind of value, it has to bring something to the table of that audience, and it has to break the pattern of what they're used to. It's got to say something different to cut through that noise. That's really at the core of a good piece of marketing. And that's what we want to do with our photos. We want to create photos that are relatively authentic, that show you. It's how you look, it's how you dress. But we want to show you in an attractive, authentic, but attractive way, because that shows a woman the value that you could bring to her if she likes your vibe and type. And we also want to break through the noise and have one or two photos that are very different, have different kinds of photos than she's used to seeing. And the reason why I was picking on selfies before is women have seen 10,000 shots of a guy taking a mirror selfie or a sunglass shot with his Zoolander cool looking face, where you're trying to look cool. What women are used to seeing are just really good, crisp portraits that where a man looks caught, he is caught in the moment. He's skiing down the hill if he's a skier. Don't do that if you're not a skier. But he's or laughing and joking with his friends and being caught in a moment of authentic candor and realness. Essentially, the 6 or 7 photos on your profile should create a narrative that say, this is what it would be like to date me. Want in? And if the answer is yes, she'll swipe right on you.
I used to teach sales. It was one of the first careers I had in my early 20s. I taught entry level retail wireless based sales professionals. These kids, young kids coming in off the street, sometimes just out of college or perhaps college and doing a part-time gig. And a big part of my first week of training was breaking that mold, that that traditional belief. This is back early 2000s, that pre-internet marketing, pre kind of like high ticket sales, that sales, the salesy was like a bad thing, like used car salesman, this and that. It's like sales is nothing more than persuasion and influence. And you're going to either succeed at influencing whoever it is you're talking to. And I would speak about it transcending a sales environment, right? We talk about conversations. If you're trying to get somebody to do something, there's got to be an element of influence in there. And it was very successful at getting these people or these young men to see sales through more of a social lens and landscape. And I think where you're saying like your profile is your marketing, like, and it's gotta be like, even the way I asked the first question, the dating marketplace. Okay. So that marketplace tells us, capitalism, that there's competition. Okay. If you're going to succeed, you got to put some effort into presenting yourself authentically, right? Don't put a character on your front page marketing that when you go to deliver that product, there's going to be a disconnect, but put some thought, some intentionality, some effort into it. That's the only way that you're going to succeed, stand out in a marketplace with true competition. I love, once again, it's like linking it back to like the growth component to what it is we're doing. Because if you understand it here, like that now becomes a transferable skill. Okay, I can present myself in the work marketplace, right? If I'm looking to maybe do business partnerships, I got to be able to present myself like this is all transferable. This deeply transcends. Obviously, we're going to stay on the dating topic, but this transcend, like this is relationship 101. Like this stuff needs to be taught like in schools.
Yeah. Well, good marketing slash sales doesn't really feel like marketing or sales, right? The Super Bowl recently, the top 3 or 4 or 5 commercials everybody loved. People weren't saying, oh, they really sold me on those Doritos. They were talking about how funny or how different they were. So you can do that on your online dating profile. I want to make a woman either laugh or be curious or smile with every part of my profile, because I know if I can make her feel those feels, I'm giving her something so valuable. And she may or may not swipe on me, depending on if I'm her type. But boy, a lot of women are going to find you that you're her type if you can make her laugh with that funny prompt, or make her go, oh my God, that photo of you hiking that shows that beautiful mountain backdrop. That's gorgeous. That's literally a pattern interrupt that stops her from swiping. If you give enough value to women, it doesn't feel like marketing. It feels like, oh man, I gotta talk to this guy. I would love for him to ask me out.
Are dating apps like a non-negotiable now? Like, I mean, in today's, like, as the coach, as the guru, as the expert in this space, like can a guy succeed not being online on a dating app?
Yeah, I get a lot of guys. I would say a third of my clients say, I'm so freaking sick of the apps and I just want to meet women in real life, which is my favorite. They're sick of ghosting, getting ghosted. They're sick of a lack of quality matches, flaky single people, and just having it not work. 51% of single men who have been on the apps have never had a single in-person date from the apps. That's according to the Pew Research Center. So literally a majority of men have never met. I'm talking about straight men. A majority of men have never met in real life a woman from the dating apps. That's just jaw dropping. So no wonder guys are sick of it.
Well, they haven't hired you yet, so they don't have the right photos.
Actually, my favorite kind of coaching to do or content to create about it is helping men meet women in real life because that's so natural and real. That's the way it should be.
You almost probably stand out.
Oh, yeah. If you are the 815th guy who has swiped right on her Tinder profile, she's not going to even, she's not, first of all, she's not even going to see it because you're under all these other guys on her Tinder stack. But if you're the one guy who walked up to her at Whole Foods that Saturday afternoon and struck up a nice, fun, flirty conversation about the kind of Ben and Jerry's ice cream she's getting, and you chat about ice cream and then you meet each other, introduce each other, all of a sudden, you're getting her number. She's going to go home and tell her girlfriends, oh my God, the coolest guy came up to me and we just started chatting. The next thing I knew, I was giving him my number. It was like something from a movie. So I love helping men give women what I call the rom-com movie experience. I want women to feel like, oh my God, he came up to me, we chatted, it just happened. They love that. And that's rarer today than ever because we've been living in the swiping age since the late 2000s.
Are you like a believer in like rapid approach? Like, you know, I've spoken. We've had a handful of dating guys on the show. I've had conversations offline with people as well. You know, some tactics and strategies like you pick a high traffic spot, you know, for an afternoon, and it's intro after intro, like you're playing a volume game. Like, is that a strategy that you've kind of implemented, and is there success or value in it?
I'll teach that if it has a purpose in a certain specific training session, but I actually prefer quality interactions to quantity of interactions. It's online dating is about quantity. Swipe, 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 and bring in all those leads into the funnel, see who's a good match for you. But with approaching, quote unquote, meeting women out in the real world, I want a man to see what I call a wow girl. A wow girl is you see a wow girl 2 or 3 times a week at most. By wow girl, I mean a woman who makes you turn your head and say, oh, wow, look at her. Man, she is my type, at least energetically and her appearance. And I want him to have a really good, high quality interaction with her because that is, you know, earlier you said how you think that the way we live our lives as men in different avenues is the way we should live life. I'm a big believer in approaching women literally the same way we should approach life. I believe we want to approach women with authenticity, with courage, with kindness. And I feel like we should live our lives the same way. And you don't really learn that lesson when you're swiping 1,000 times a week. But if you take a deep breath, see that stunning woman in the cute yoga outfit at Whole Foods on a Saturday afternoon, being able to walk up to her, be relatively confident in yourself and know what to say, and maybe get a phone number and a date, which is great. That'll change your life. But even if you don't, you've just done the bravest, most badass thing in the world. You've taken a romantic, authentic risk. And that is something that builds your character every time you do it. So I'm more about those quality approaches and conversations as opposed to numbers game.
Are there off limit places where you don't approach women, and the opposite of that, like where in just your kind of coaching experience, because I'm sure you've had hundreds of, you know, guys succeed in cold approaching. Have there been patterns in like these are locations that are successful, like our coffee shops, you know, seem to be a lot more successful. It's early morning or, you know, kind of, so like what are the off limits? Where are guys maybe succeeding?
I would say avoid nunneries, uh, avoid funerals.
Okay.
You know, weddings when she's wearing a white dress, probably not the best lead.
And
Uh,
dancing with her father, yeah.
other than that, pretty much anywhere is within reason. Okay, don't walk into the cockpit when she's trying to land the plane. Read the room. But to your point, I'm a big fan of bookstores, coffee shops, live music events, a great place. Any event you can go to where you and other people are there for the same reason, you have a built-in icebreaker with anybody there. So you're at a concert, you're at the beach party, you're at a music festival. And of course, there's bars, lounges, which very cliche kind of place to do it, but very few men do it anymore. And in a way, it's actually something that's fairly rare for a woman to have a guy approach her well. So I've met my past girlfriends in the past. I've met at everywhere from bowling alley, coffee shop, I think Grand Central Station once. So really, anywhere where you're out in the world, you have social permission. If you follow a couple simple little rules, which I'm happy to share, there are ways to break the ice with a woman in a way that's classy and will probably make it go well. And if it doesn't, that's okay. There's other women to talk to.
Yeah, I would love the rules, and I'm sure one of them is going to link back to authenticity. Don't approach a woman on a golf course. If you're not a golfer, right? It's like I've had 4 long-term relationships in my adult life. I'm 41 years old. All 4 of them I've met in the gym. Now, a lot of women will tell you don't approach you in the gym, but I'm a meathead. Like that's just like it's my life. It's my identity. I'm a bodybuilder. I've worked in gyms. I spend the same amount of time. Like it's important for me to have a person that carries that same passion. Now, 2 of them were batshit crazy, anyways. But I'll leave. That's a different conversation here. But for me, it's been like that's a place of like I'm kind of social there. It's kind of like I know people. Like it's a place of comfort. So it's easy for me to be authentic, real. Like it's my environment. So yeah, what are the rules to the approach game?
Think of it, there's a couple different quadrants we can look at here. Let's look at nighttime and daytime. At nighttime, so we got nighttime and daytime. And there's 2 styles of approaching, or I should say 2 categories, not styles, 2 categories, direct and indirect. Direct means you walk right up, and from the moment you talk to her, you're clear with your words. Hey, you're beautiful. How to meet you, or something like that. That's direct. Indirect would be more conversational, more chit chatty and friendly. Indirect. Hey, you're at the coffee shop. So what are you thinking today? You thinking iced coffee or hot coffee? What's your jam? That's indirect. So think indirect and direct, and think night and day. Generally, at night, you have more social permission to be direct. You could walk up to a woman at 11 p.m. at the bar and say, hey, I just saw you. You're adorable. You're my type. I had to meet you. Boom, direct. Awesome. I love that. In a coffee shop at noon on a Starbucks on a Saturday, that's probably a little bit too intense for a lot of women. So in the daytime, in a more chill environment, I would say be indirect. And by indirect, choose one of 3 really simple options. A, B, C. A, give her a genuine, specific G-rated compliment. B, ask her a question that makes sense to ask given where you are. Or C, make an observation, notice something unusual about her or what's happening, and you can use that unusual thing as an icebreaker. If you approach in this indirect way in the daytime, you're going to have a 70, 80, 90% success ratio of a good response. She may or may not be available, but a positive social response. And at night, you can be more direct, a bit more, yeah, she's a hottie. I'm going right up to her. A lot of women like that energy, but they prefer it more at night than in the daytime. At the gym, definitely indirect.
Of course, yeah. And just yeah, and just a personal point here. Don't ask her if she competes. Women hate that. Fit women that aren't competitors hate being asked if they compete. It's a very I'm not sure why guys ask that. It's a really weird question. Anyways,
They ask that at
uh,
the gym, is what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. You'll see a fit girl, and he's not really the most, jacked guy in the gym, and it's like they instantly, yeah, it's irrelevant to this conversation.
No, that's a good, don't do that. I didn't know that. But you've spent more time with the gym clearly than I have.
We unpacked that a lot there. Logical and boring questions. That was kind of the third mistake that you mentioned there. I mean, if I don't want to say you're a boring guy because I don't like nobody's boring to everybody. So I think once again, this comes back to, are you dating dating within a match? Because a person would find you boring if you haven't done the necessary groundwork prior to the date to understand, like, is there common interest there? That's just how I think. But yeah, unpack that a little bit, and what you meant is in terms of the mistake that guys are making and what they should be doing.
Right. Here's one of the biggest, easiest mistakes for men to fall into, and every man can get out of it. Everyone. I don't care what he says. I know he can because I've coached so many. The biggest flirting mistake, I should say. Biggest flirting mistake men make is they speak logically, factually, analytically to women instead of more emotionally, and the magic word is play. playfully. We want to be playful with women. Even the very definition of flirting, I looked it up on Webster's recently. It's playing at love, which is a perfect word, playing. So the biggest mistake men make is not asking questions, but asking logical, informational questions or talking about things in a logical, informational way. So you listening to this, good sir, if you've ever had a date where you felt like, oh my God, the conversation flowed, there were no awkward pauses, everything seemed to be great, and then she sends me that just not feeling it message, there's a very good chance that what happened was you spoke primarily logically and informationally to her rather than more emotionally and playfully. So can I give you a quick demonstration, Frank? Great. Here is, well, let's talk about interview mode. Have you ever heard the phrase interview mode?
Yeah.
Don't do interview mode. Don't ask a woman a million questions. Don't interrogate her. There's some truth in that. But the problem isn't interview mode. The problem is that the interview questions are logical, factual, and boring. So, where'd you grow up? What year did you graduate? What college did you go to? What was your major? How long have you lived here? Those are bad interview questions. But what if we asked good, playful interview questions? Then all of a sudden you're engaging a woman on an emotional wavelength, which is where women live and where they want to date. So instead of where did you go to college, you might say, if you could go back, do it all over again, what would you major in now and why? Get her to speak more emotionally about it. Or instead of saying, when did you have your first day on this job? Ask her, what's the very best day you've ever had in your career as a prosecutor? What was the highlight moment from your career? That's a more evocative, emotional question. So what we want to do is, or you can ask really creative questions, creative what if questions. Instead of saying, where is your next trip? You could say, if you and I could be transported anywhere in the world right now, where would we go together? You could create a bit of a flirtatious two-person frame where she can imagine herself on a vacation with you. So don't be afraid of questions. Be afraid of logical, boring questions, or I should say, only logical, boring conversation. And we want to imbue our dates and our approaches, frankly, texts online. Every part of dating should have some element of playfulness. It's a famous quote from Shakespeare: "The play is the thing." I think in dating, the thing is the play. It's all about being playful when it comes to flirting.
Yeah. And there's a charisma that's required for that. I'm almost, as you're talking, I'm linking this back to like a point that I made a little bit earlier. I think sales, persuasion, influence, conversation is perhaps the greatest, most important skill set and ability for a person to know, understand if they're going to succeed dating in a date, post date. How can you continue to flirt later on? Well, you have to be able to create this playful environment. Successful sales is about asking the necessary questions to kind of get the answers that you kind of are seeking, or the information, but you do it almost in an uninterrogating type of way. Same things with coaching. I'm sure a big part of your work is your ability to ask proper questions to your clients to help them reveal the truth, reveal the answers to themselves. Same thing in the dating, right? You want to know about her backstory. She wants to tell it to you, but you got to do it, like you said, in this playful, non-interrogating type of way. And I loved the examples that you shared there. Where can a guy go to learn how to do that?
Well, here's a couple quick tips. Even before you get super playful, first let's just break out of logic and analysis, right? Women don't go on a date to feel like they are talking to their tax accountant. They want to have fun. What I love about your podcast is you talk about your 5 F's, right? Faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom. That's awesome. I'm going to throw 3 more F's for dating. Okay. Flirting, fun, and fearlessness. So flirting is to me, it's about fun or playfulness. And it takes a little bit of courage to do that. So you have to be able to step into your fear, right? Here are a couple of tips on doing that with women. You can literally start sentences. Start off sentences by saying, I feel. Here's how I feel about X, whatever the topic is. And if you start sentences with the word feel, then you'll begin to retrain your brain to start speaking through an emotional lens, which is where women want to be on a date, as opposed to I think or factual. You can also ask a woman this question. Oh, really? No way. Today was your first day at that job? How'd it feel? Don't say, how many hours did you work or when did you start? How did it feel? What was the best part of your day? So use feel. Another thing you can do is literally use the phrase I love a lot. And even a couple times you can say I hate a lot. You want to have a full emotional range of expression. A lot of guys get friend zoned because they play it safe. They don't take verbal chances. They're worried about offending her. We want to do the opposite. We want to be fully expressive. So say, oh my God, your favorite movie is XYZ. It's, I don't know, Star Wars 3. Oh my God, I love that movie. I fucking love it. Wait, you think Phantom Menace is good? I fucking hate that movie. Oh my God. I was so into you till you said that. You blew it with me. So you can play around. You can do things like challenge her. These are all emotionally evocative things that make just sort of turn a woman's emotional pleasure centers on and that keep the date fun and light and playful. And so, yeah, you can use some of those tools to get out of that logical analytical mode and get into that more of a fun zone, if that makes sense.
100%. How do you keep a guy from falling into, I don't want to say desperation, right? But we're talking, specifically the first question was nice guys in their 30s haven't been successful. There's the story, the narrative that maybe this is the one chance I got. So there's this like, because the ability, even what you just said there, right? It's like I liked you until you said that. Like the fear in the guy is like the minute I say that, she's gone. So this is linking us back to once again like the nice guys. So how do you integrate as you're recovering from this nice guy into this playfulness? Like how do you kind of balance that? Is like, because I don't want to lose it, but I'm like you got to test, and you're gonna maybe lose before you succeed.
Here's a good rule. What you think is risky in dating is safe. And what is safe is very risky. So there's a paradox here. If you play it safe, you are risking the very high likelihood that she's not going to be into you because you're safe. You're not taking a stance. You're not being bold or at least putting your real self out there. But if you take some risks, if you take some chances, then you actually are making a very smart, safe decision because you're giving yourself a real good chance of impressing her because you're that guy who takes some risks. She may or may not like you, but the women who like that type of guy are going to be incredibly attracted to that guy. That Trevor story I told you earlier, he told me, oh my God, Connell, when I looked at her and said, I've lost interest in your story, I was so scared. And then, but he did the scary thing, and she was literally sitting on his lap. And they were making out, and their second date was they had a couples massage, an intimate couples massage that she suggested for their second date. She got incredibly attracted to him because she said, finally, a guy who's willing to make some moves, take some chances. So that nice guy who's by the way, I want to be careful here. I love nice guys. I'm the nicest guy in the world. I grew up in Ohio. I literally help little ladies cross the street sometimes. I'm the nicest guy in the world, but I'm also going to take those risks on a date. I'm going to say something that walks up to the edge of offending her, not to offend her, but that she might not like, because I know that even if she doesn't like it, she's going to say, finally, a man who just fucking says what he thinks. What do bad boys have that nice guys don't? It's not the leather jacket. It's not the motorcycle or the stubble. It's the fact that he's unfiltered and he just says what he wants.
Because the woman's psychology or even her intuition nature that she's not even consciously aware of is saying this guy's the risk taker. He's going to step out. He's going to be the one that's going to confront the danger so I can fall into my feminine. I'm now safe. And that's exactly what happened in Trevor's situation. Is he did the scary thing, but it shocked her that, oh, this guy's different. Now I'm safe. Second date, intimate couples massage. Seriously, that's a woman that felt incredibly safe.
That's her idea too.
In that guy's presence. Yeah, absolutely. She felt so safe in that guy's presence.
And I've seen this a million. I've been coaching for 13 years and working in this area for 20. By the way, I had to learn all this. I was Mr. Friend Zone. I was Mr. Lonely. I was Mr. quote nice guy. And I had to learn all this the fun but hard way. And every time I approached a woman and I did it half-heartedly, instant rejection. But when I really stepped into it and really committed to it, to use the Michael Jordan analogy, when I went strong to the hoop, not every woman wanted me, But man, the women who like my type are like, well, hello, Mr. Confident. Boom, instant attraction. So what's safe is risky in dating, and what's risky is safe.
And safe, I would say that's the North Star. Like, you're not looking for a woman to say I love you. Like, they throw that around like it's candy. It's like you're looking for the woman to say I feel safe with you. Like that, I've only been told a handful of times. Like, that hits and resonates different.
Women are attracted to strength, for lack of a better term, strength. Let's call it masculine strength. And bad boys, and sometimes those pickup type dudes, they project that. But guess what? You're a nice guy. You're kind. You're a sweet guy, like I am, like I know you are. You can get all the girls that the bad boys get, and you can be the good man of integrity you are by complementing that niceness with cheeky, little fun, playful humor, tease her, pull her proverbial pigtails. Oh, here's a great simple tip that any guy can do in his dating life. Lead. Just be a leader. Be a man with a plan. One of the simplest things I did when I first started working on my dating life, and so many women just were so thankful to me. My then future girlfriend, Lorraine, said, "You're such a good planner. I loved how you just picked the place, told me when, told me where. You led it so well. I love a man who plans." And my girlfriend to this day says, "You make me tingle when you plan stuff for us." So be a man who leads. And women, our dating dance, and in our dating dance, the roles are the man leads, at least in the courting process. The woman tends to follow, and it still works that way.
And there's balances. Certain relationships, the guy's going to be way more heavily masculine, probably attracted more feminine. Like, he's gonna lead to the point where he's like, this is where we're going, this is what you're wearing, this is what I'm picking you up, like, this is what you're eating, da 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 da. Some women enjoy that, and then the other is going to be somewhere closer to kind of the middle. It's understanding yourself, once again, linking all the way back to the beginning. It's like, in order for you to be successful, authentic, like, you need to know who you are and staying kind of within your lane and kind of metrics. So I want to get, not rapid fire here, but, the last couple minutes, maybe get kind of run through a couple. We've talked the profile, the setup, the identity, the transformation, the logic, the tactic, strategies around the conversation, the playfulness. First date do's and don'ts, like, in terms of places, events, locations, time frames. Like, kind of walk us through, like, an ideal, in your opinion, first dating environment, or the don'ts as well.
I would say my big 3 P's of a first date, these are all do's. Playful. We already talked about that. Present. Try to be as present, a good active listener. A simple technique for that is listen to what she says and repeat the last 2 or 3 words of her sentence back to her. That forces you to be present. You can literally, so she says, "Yeah, I just really love skiing in Vail. I was with my whole family." "Oh, you're with your whole family in Vail." And then add to that. So be present, be playful, and positive. As much as not a lot, but sometimes a man will show up on a date and he's got some baggage, or he's just feeling kind of negative about dating. And if your boss was mean to you that day, if your dog is sick, God forbid, I'm sorry, but bring some positivity to the date. So those are the do's. Another couple of big do's would be, don't do dinner. I hate first date dinners. They get expensive. I don't want a woman to have to hear the weird noises I make when I chew. So she doesn't want to hear it either. So I'd say stick to something that is not a big dinner. And if you do a drinks date, grab a seat at the bar or restaurant where you can be physically next to each other, not across from each other, like you're at H&R Block going over your W-9s, but next to her, because that way you can be a little bit physically expressive. You can touch a little bit each other. And that's hard to do if she's sitting across from you. Those are the big do's.
Yeah, I like not events, but activities. I spent a short window a couple of years ago on the dating apps. There was a season of singleness for me. Play my card. I'm gonna share the deck here, right? Like, Frank's first move, it was like axe throwing, because there's a great place local here but it's fun, it's engaging. Typically, I'd be better, so now I'm competitive, but I'm doing it in a playful way. You can then teach, right? So now you kind of position yourself as kind of authority, but then there's going to be an element of, like, playful touch that is almost required as you're teaching the instructions. So you're passing that physical barrier without it being awkward, creepy, or weird. So there's the move from Coach Frank, guys. Axe throwing.
Bringing it. That's great. And you stumbled on, not stumbled, but you shared something really important. A lot of guys say to me, "Oh, I don't want to touch her," or I don't want to be a creep touching her." And if you just touch with no
You
reason,
shouldn't be on a date with a woman if you don't want to touch her.
exactly. But hey, that's the story in some men's minds. And I say to them, "Well, it's a date. It's okay to touch, at least to test the waters. Here's a good way to touch early on the date, in a way that's not creepy. It's quite normal. Have a reason for the touch. Your reason for that touch might be, oh, let me show you how to hold the axe, right? Let me show you. I had a few golf lesson dates back in the day, and I'd say, hey, here's how you here. Let me show you how you hold the club, and I might touch her hand on the club. You might on a first date, you might see do this old school move from the pickup guys, but this still works. Is you notice a piece of jewelry, do the jewelry inspection, take her hand. Oh, what's this ring? What's the story behind this? And you give her hand back, but it gives you a reason to touch her. And that makes her say, oh, the reason for touching is normal. It's not strange. So early in a date, you can have a reason for the touch. If you have a reason for doing it, that makes it understandable for her, not creepy at all.
There's a lot of opportunities. I mean, I touch strangers all the time, like just in a conversation. I'm going to put my hand on somebody's back as I'm talking to them. I don't know the theory behind this, but I remember growing up, I was a baseball guy, and Mike Maddox, who was the pitching coach for the Texas Rangers, I think he was the brother or the uncle of Greg Maddox, all-star, Cy Young winner for the Braves. Mike Maddox was a pitching coach, though, and a pitching coach's job is to go out to the mound in times of crisis and calm the pitcher down. And I remember watching Mike, and the announcers would highlight this every time. As he was talking to his pitcher, his hand would be on his trap, not squeezing it, but almost to a point where there's like, you feel the touch, and just my energy into you is almost calming you as my words are kind of doing their job. So I'll meet random people, or I'll be sharing things with people kind of throughout conversations and just in social environments. And it's like, I just find myself with my hand kind of on their back. I've never had anybody ask me to leave it. So if you're at the bar and you're ordering drinks, hey, what did you want? You're getting up to the bathroom. Hey, I'll be right back. There's these little subtle things that aren't creepy, but it breaks that first barrier of physical touch.
Generally, a woman is going to be comfortable with a certain amount of physical touch on a date. Not always. Everyone has their own sort of flirting language. So I don't like when I see TikTok and other social media so-called dating experts say always break the touch barrier. Well, always at least test the waters. But some women are not super touchy, and that's okay. We don't know until we try. So start with those simple little G-rated touches like I described and see how she responds. If she touches back, she likes it, keep doing it. If not, certainly pull back and she'll appreciate that.
Are there, I don't want to go tactic and strategies here, but like this is almost like a thermometer check of the energy in the environment. Obviously, self-awareness, basic understanding of communication stuff is should signal cues, but the guy's trying to maybe just check the thermometer kind of early mid date on like where kind of the energy is at. Anything that you can kind of like point to directly?
Send her a dick pic during the date. See if she likes it or not. Good question. No one's ever asked me that, Frank. That's a great question. Like, how is the date going, basically? I would say one do, couple don'ts. Don't overly read whether or not she's doing things like, oh, she's not twirling her hair. She's not touching me. Okay, it'd be nice if she was all over you. That'd be great. But with different women have different kind of rules for how they like to flirt. So don't overly read, oh, she didn't, she wasn't, unbuttoning her shirt in front of me. I would say keep it simple. If she is being present and focused on you, she's not checking her phone 5 times, right? She seems engaged in the conversation. That's a very good sign. Very good. It might not sound sexy, but it's a very good sign. And here's a really good way to check mid date. And this is actually just good strategy. And I am totally fine to talk old school tactics. I'm totally fine with that. I have no problem with tactics as long as the intention is good, right? Switch locations, or suggest you switch locations. Have a drink. If let's say it's a drinks date, have a drink and say, hey, you know what? There's a really cool spot for down the 5-minute walk from here. Shall we get a nightcap? If she goes with you, oh man, she's certainly into this. And sometimes a woman's not sure how she feels about you, but by changing locations, you do like a logistical kind of a stair step escalation, and it's almost like you give her 2 or 3 dates in one.
I'm so glad you said that, because as you're sharing, I was like, that was actually the second part of the axe throwing. Is the axe throwing one block down had a small bar that was also attached to like an ice cream creamery. So it would be this, it was the same, it was like I understood the psychology of that, right? Two environments, you kind of create two different social settings, you almost create two type of dates. So now it's like a two for type of one, and then you have a longer walk back to the car to kind of end the night there as well. Colin, man, I could go on and on and on with you, but I know we need to wrap it up. We might have to do a part two here, just kind of dive a little bit deeper on things we touched the surface with. But tell the guys out there, obviously, about your book briefly. Plug that, Dating Sucks, You Don't, where they can connect with you, and if they're interested in perhaps getting some coaching, like who do you work with and serve? Because I'm assuming that you just don't coach any guy that's like single out there. Like I'm sure you have a specific kind of like superpower with a specific
Any
type
guy
of
who's
guy.
struggling with what to say, who is a professional, successful guy, whose life is mainly together, but this is the one area he's never really had confidence or a lot of success in, he's my guy. Yeah, and especially if he's a logical, maybe introverted guy in most of life, which I actually am. I'm a naturally introverted person. Anyway, that's my jam. Basically, a younger version of me is my ideal client. And I have a podcast I'm really proud of called How to Get a Girlfriend. And you can find that on my website, datingtransformation.com, or wherever you find your podcast. And my book, Dating Sucks, But You Don't, I'm also really proud of that. Came out 4 years ago and it's still doing really well. So all of this can be found at datingtransformation.com.
Incredible. Guys, we'll have all that plugged down there in the show notes. Connor's book, his podcast. We'll be linking up I'll be on the show here in the coming weeks. Not sure when all this is going to air for both of us, but there will be a point. So subscribe, rate, review. We'll have his Instagram, social. Last and final question. You obviously have listened to the show a handful of times, I think, so you know how we ended up here today. We're the Super in Life. This is what we're about. You talked about the 5 pillars here, really stepping into a purpose calling and really taking a growth-centric lens to life from a value kind of creation perspective. But as we wrap up today, Connell, I'd love to get your take on how you, maybe specific to the dating world, since that's your superpower, would define living a superhuman dating life.
I would say everything I teach comes down to one sentence in dating, but also in life, or I'm talking about dating, which is go out there and take courageous, authentic risks. Life's about courage. It's about taking risks and showing people that real best true self. So in a sentence, that's what I'm about.
I love it, guys. Courageous, authentic, risk. Day after day, it's a numbers game. Guys, check out Connell, rate, review, share this one. Hope you got value. But Coach Frank, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.